Hey, thanks for dialing up NBC Sports Radio and NBCSportsRadio.com. This is Speaking of Sports. I'm your host, Jim Daniels, here every Sunday morning. That's when we do this, and we appreciate you being along for the ride. Coming up here in just a second, Rick Horrow, the professor, will join us. I want to share with you very quickly before we go to the professor a little bit of our conversation with Chris Price with WEEI, talking to him about the big AFC Championship game. And, you know, aside from the game, what about the opportunity for the Patriots to be standing on the Super Bowl platform and be the recipients of the trophy, and Roger Goodell being the one to have to hand that over? That could be a pretty sweet moment for the Patriots, don't you think, Chris?
I do think there is something to the idea that the Patriots would love nothing more than to be able to be the last team standing and to have Brady and Belichick up there on the podium and accepting the trophy from Roger Goodell. I think would make for the most awkward post-Super Bowl trophy presentation since Al Davis and Pete Rozelle all those years ago.
Chris, let me ask this additional question to that. If that happens, if it is the Patriots in the Super Bowl, what are the odds that Roger Goodell finds someone else to hand that trophy out? About 90%?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a surprise, quite frankly, the way he's avoided New England. You know, in all seriousness, too, and we've debated this up here on our radio show, whether Roger Goodell is ever able to show his face in New England ever again.
Ever.
I think it's a really, because, and there's going to be big games here in New England over, you know, you would assume anyway that there's going to be big games here in New England over the next couple of years. And, you know, is that fervor, is that passion ever going to get to a point where he can show his face at Gillette Stadium, at least publicly, ever again? I don't know if that's ever going to be the case.
That's Chris Price with WEEI there in Boston. The professor joins us now, Rick Horrow, to talk about that. Look, I know this is a tough putt for you, but that's why I put it in here. I know that you're friends with the Crafts, and you've watched your fair share of games from the owner's box, but I also know that you're friends with the commissioner, Roger Goodell. This is going to be a potential really tricky moment for the commissioner should that happen, isn't it?
Well, my first instinct, and I know I got to weigh it, and we're still 3 weeks away from that, is that this is a $1 billion, meaning 12 to $25 billion corporation, and each owner is a 1/32nd partner, and that was last year. Sure, it's hard to get over. Just doesn't sound right in New England because they're set for revenge. But Roger Goodell's the boss. They'll find a way to deal with this issue. Roger Goodell will celebrate history, and the Patriots will be in the rarefied air of doing something that's never been done. The media will make a big deal out of this. I think the two parties at that moment in time will not. That's my prediction, knowing both of them.
You know, I think that there's an opportunity here, and I kind of made a joke with Chris a second ago. It is Super Bowl 50, and there is clearly an opportunity here where you could have some enormous NFL figure come out and hand out that trophy instead of the commissioner. I think he's going to take heat either way if that's what happens. I just got to figure Roger Goodell is hoping for the Peyton Manning riding off into the sunset scenario to the end of this season, right?
Yeah, I suspect he's not thinking of, honestly. You know, it's one of those issues where we can all speculate who that super-duper person is. I know that there's no let's put it this way, from some information I have, no former commissioner that is either with us anymore or will be going to the game. So it's not going to be that.
Nope.
And if it's going to be somebody that may be above the fray, I can't imagine who that would be. Although it is a good point. Super Bowl 50 is going to be special for a whole lot of reasons. 2 weeks of activity, the Golden Celebration. I'm doing a Super Bowl special. I'll tell you about it next week, and it's on the NBC family of networks on television, so that'll be cool. So, the bottom line of all of this is a special event, and I'm not sure that moment will be special, regardless of how it plays out.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a question of what we're going to predict on it.
A little bit to his defense, I don't want to become a Roger Goodell apologist here, but, you are an attorney. You are living in his world. We do talk the business of sports and deals and that. Talk about, just for a second, what an absolute, almost impossible job Roger Goodell has. I mean, he's trying to keep so many people happy, starting with 32 different owners, then all the fan bases. And it's like anytime anything goes wrong with the league internally, like anything that is league controlled, and that includes officiating, people very quickly always want to turn to the boss and say, hey, this is your fault. Talk about what a tough job that is.
Well, I don't want to be an apologist, but when you talk to Paul Tagliabue, he would be the first to admit that the era of social media causes a lot more of a different PR strategy, to put it mildly. And so it's not only, you are correct, that it's going to be people giving Roger Goodell a piece of their mind, but they give him a piece of their mind a microsecond after it happens. And so, again, not an excuse, but when you think about the last 9 months of football, the biggest issues right now, to tell you the truth, are the playoff format. Is a catch a catch? Most of those issues are relatively, well, they're certainly different. I don't think you could say they're less significant than Brady, Hardy, Rice. But when you take a look at how the NFL has moved, you may not like the standards, but you got to say over the last 2 years, the standards are certainly clearer as to what happens if you violate off-field and on-field. And honestly, whether it's Roger Goodell or everybody else, everybody's to be commended on that.
Rick Horrow is our guest. We talk the business of sports with Rick every week. Let's talk about one of our favorite guys, at least in the business of sports. That's Jordan Spieth, and he's fresh off the 2016 Hyundai Tournament of Champions, picking up right where he left off, but he's got a brand new big fat corporate sponsor, and this is a perfect fit, isn't it?
Big and fat. It's as big and fat a deal as the LeBron James Sprite deal. It's Coca-Cola. And the key to this one, by the way, is not just that he's going to be in that rarefied air of Coke Ambassadors International, but it's going to be all Olympic related as well. He's one of Coke's 6 kind of brand ambassadors, the 6-pack ambassadors leading up to the games. And remember, golf comes back to the Olympics for the first time since 1904. And so the last time a Coke golf sponsor existed was Bobby Jones. So that's all you need to know about Jordan Spieth. And by the way, there's a lot of money in it.
Yeah, we kind of figured that part of it. Let's switch to MLB, where the Nationals' Bryce Harper has recently signed a deal with New Era to become the American Headwear Company's brand ambassador. That's a pretty good ambassador, isn't it?
Pretty good ambassador, and it joins Buster Posey and Andrew McCutcheon and Jacob deGrom. And kudos to New Era, because they found a guy who happens to move the endorsement needle, but he's also genuinely interested in the bottom line of New Era. The guy says that he's been wearing caps since he was 5 or 6, and he was wearing snapbacks and beanies, and he was wearing New Era or nothing else. Well, the only difference now, again, is they're paying big money to do it, so he guarantees he'll be wearing New Era or nothing else. But it's a good example of the endorsement world in sports not dying as long as you pick the right guy.
Let's go back to the NFL for a second, because we are on Championship Sunday. We'll know by the end of this day who our participants are going to be in the Super Bowl, but we still don't know exactly what the L.A. landscape is going to be. The Rams are approved. They're coming back to Los Angeles. They're playing in the Coliseum starting this year, but the Chargers, still a question mark. Do you have a feel in the business world as to what might happen with the Chargers? Seems like they'd be foolish not to take the deal that Stan Kroenke's offered. It looks pretty sweet.
Well, yeah, except there's a territorial relocation fee issue that people don't talk about. We don't know what the numbers is exactly. That's not something people focus on. And also, the Chargers may want to give the city one last chance to get the referendum done that says we're going to get you that public-private partnership stadium in San Diego. Because now everybody knows that if it doesn't happen this year, they're out, and everybody knows they're out. And I'm not sure whether the Spanos family has the appetite to wait, because we've had 15 years of promises that don't work,
right.
But they are holding the cards right now, and the Raiders are holding cards right after that. The other issue is, Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, he immediately dismissed St. Louis. St. Louis immediately dismissed the NFL. But time has a way of healing some wounds. So, if I'm the Raiders, I look at sharing Santa Clara. I look at San Antonio. I look at San Diego. If the Chargers vacate, I look at Toronto. And I may even look at St. Louis, believe it or not.
Yeah, that is one of the stories out here in L.A. this morning, that the Raiders would, quote, pounce on San Diego if the Chargers leave. I got to imagine there's enough Raider fans that go down there and fill up that stadium. And Phillip Rivers said the other day the thought of that makes him throw up in his mouth a little bit. But the idea of the Chargers, going to Los Angeles, look, how can you not, when you saw what happened to the Rams, they went from $1.4 billion to $2.9 in value in a week.
Well, yeah, and they're also spending a lot of money to do it. And, Stan Kroenke is the guy who is the architect of this entire strategy. when he announced the real estate play 2 years ago, and he didn't need permission to do a real estate deal to do a stadium. He needs permission to move, but if the stadium had been his primary passion for the last year, it made things easier for everybody. People in Carson don't particularly like what he did, but they can't argue with his results. And, the winners here are clearly the league with all the leverage that is unfolding the way we thought it would the last couple of weeks, and the media, because now everybody writes about stuff that, we've all kind of known for the last few months, but we're writing it as if it's gospel.
Well, we'll see how this whole thing plays out. First, we'll play out our Super Bowl and see how that goes, and then the battle for the rest of L.A. Will play out, I'm sure, pretty soon. Rick Horrow, thanks for joining us once again. It's always great to catch up with you and talk the business of sports. Thanks for being with us on NBC Sports Radio.
Can't wait for next week, as always, pal.
Can't wait. Can you tell us all about what you've got going on here in the NBC family next week, too? Excited about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. Good stuff from the professor there. Yeah, you can follow him on Twitter. Rick's a great guy. I mean, he's an author as well. He's got a couple of great books. When the Game is on the Line is one of them that you can check out. Yeah, how about that? Raiders playing in the Chargers' old stadium. My gosh, what did Charger fans say? I know what Charger fans think about that. Coming up next, going to share a great conversation we had with Gary Myers. Gary Myers has written a book that you may be interested in. We'll tell you about it next on NBC Sports Radio and NBC Sports Radio's mobile app.